Welcome to the Raise Your Bars podcast, where it's all about elevating your life one step at a time. With your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan. Together, we're here to guide you through the transformative journey of self-improvement and success. Have you ever wondered what behaviors and actions you need to change to achieve the results and success you desire in life? Well, you're in the right place. Each episode, we dive deep into the strategies, mindset shifts, and practical steps you can take to raise your bars. From personal development to professional growth, Chris and Al share their expertise, experiences, and the occasional tough love, all designed to empower you to reach your full potential. So, whether you're looking to make a big change or simply fine-tune your path to success, grab a seat and let's raise those bars together. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Raise Your Bars podcast. I'm here with my good friend Chris Baker, and I'm Al Rattan. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Al. Doing good. Oh, we got a little bit of an echo.
Do we? Interesting.
Yeah.
I do not hear that on my end. So I don't know what to say, but I do not hear it on my end. And I don't hear it from you either.
Okay.
So, yeah, should be good.
Oh, we're good.
Okay,
All right.
see what happens. Cool. So, Chris, it's been an interesting week. I just got back from some traveling, so we're recording this one a little bit later than normal. So it's going to be released a little bit later than normal, but hopefully we can get back on track here over the next couple of weeks. But we were talking after we did our 10 part or 9-part series on, the reasons people fail, 9-part series on the top 10 reasons people fail. We moved on to sort of the power of persistence.
Yeah.
And last week's episode, we talked about purpose and the importance of finding your purpose and living out that purpose and living your purpose, not somebody else's purpose for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to talk about excuses, everybody's favorite word, and how we need to eliminate them from our lives. So, what are your initial thoughts on the reasoning maybe people make excuses before I read a couple of things from John's book here?
So I think, and again, people may think we're being harsh on this, but to me, an excuse is basically avoiding responsibility.
I agree.
Right? I mean, a reason why something didn't happen is potentially factual, right? But an excuse is like, it's avoiding that responsibility. So I really want to look at or encourage people to avoid making those excuses, and instead of looking for reasons and excuses as why things didn't happen, start looking at it as to how can we make things happen, right?
Yeah.
And it does come down to that responsibility and accountability, I think.
Yeah.
That's just my initial thoughts,
No, and I agree, because you're right. Like, there's nothing I've been part of an organization before, and I think we talked about this on the podcast, but we went through a little bit of a difficult time, and the CEO of the company at the time made excuses and threw the CFO of the company under the bus in front of the shareholders, instead of taking responsibility for himself. And I also heard another story about when, is it Henry Blank, who was the CEO of Home Depot, was in visiting a store one day, and the general manager made excuses and threw one of the frontline managers under the bus in front of the team and the CEO. And, the next day that general manager was relieved of his duties, because at the end of the day, I can't make excuses. I have to take responsibility for the actions of myself and the actions
Right.
of my team. And I think a lot of people use excuses to try to protect themselves from, like exactly what you said, accepting the responsibility or facing the reality of the situation they're in.
Yeah. And we 4 years ago we went through quite a traumatic period, right? With the pandemic, with COVID. But it was 4 years ago.
Yes.
Right. And yet it still amazes me now when I hear individuals or I hear companies, leaders, whoever, right, use COVID as an excuse for why things are not right now. Right.
Yeah.
That to me is shirking responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Because yes, at the time for the year or so, or as we went through COVID and after COVID, but really that should have ended like 3 years ago, right?
Mhm.
We should have like looked at that and said, okay, this was a situation that nobody could forecast, right? Nobody in their honestly, nobody could have said, oh, this is going to happen, right? Um, Nobody could have known the impact it had on individuals, on families, on businesses, and I'm not um, I'm not saying that it didn't have an effect. It did, right? I don't want to lessen that thing.
But we need to stop
However,
blaming everything that's happening
right,
today on COVID.
right, yes. What we should be doing is looking at it and learning from that, and then saying, what can we do now to make things better? And when I see businesses or I hear operating, they say, yeah, we're short staffed because of COVID. No, you're not. Right, you're short staffed because you're not employing people because you're trying to keep your costs down, right? Or labor
Right.
costs have gone up, etc.
Yeah.
That's a reason
Or your
why.
company culture sucks, so people are jumping ship.
Exactly.
Mm.
But COVID is not the excuse. All right. It may have been a factor 4 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, depending where you are.
Right.
But you're not living in the past, right? So take responsibility, take accountability, pull your socks up, put your big boy panties on, and make a difference. Right. And again, that people will say, we're being harsh
Big
and
girl.
we're doing it, but yeah, big boy, big girl, whatever, right? I don't mean that to be any it's gender neutral, right?
Yes.
In
Yes.
other words, take responsibility and look forward.
Mhm.
We've used the metaphor before about when you're driving a car, and I've been expanding on this a little bit in my thought processes this week as I've been looking at some content for a program I'm doing next week, where next month, where I want people to think about the bigger picture and think about everything that's going on. Right. So when you're
Right.
in your car and you've just done a car journey back from the airport for an hour and a half, um, your windscreen is huge, right? Especially in your truck, right? And
Yeah.
then even your side windows are there, right?
Right. Yeah.
Why is that the case? Because what you need to do is see where you're going. You need to see what's laterally that could potentially impact your journey, right? Or benefit your journey. Your rear view mirror in relation is tiny.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have to have half an eye on what's behind you, but
Right.
what's behind you is gone, right? What's ahead of you is what you can impact. What's behind you, you can't impact.
Yeah. Because guess what? If you just drive looking in your rear view mirror, you're going to get into an accident.
Correct. Or you're going to have to stop because you can't move
Here's
forward
where
because
you're
you're
going.
always looking back, right?
Exactly. So let's move this to a little bit into like so again, folks, we're just taking a few quotes and a few thoughts from John Maxwell's book Failing Forward, who and Chris and I are both mentored by John and privileged to have that opportunity. But John says quotes George Washington Carver in here says 99% of failures come from people who have the habit of making excuses.
Mm-hmm.
99. So these are people that have developed a habit of making an excuse for everything that happens in their life,
Yep.
in their business, in their family, instead of saying, you know what, I need to take ownership of this. I need to step up as a leader within my home,
Mhm.
within my business, within my community, and um, and start making a difference in steps and progress towards making it right, or accepting the responsibility myself. And I know from me, I mean, I've definitely fallen into the habit of making excuses before in the past. Oh, it didn't happen because of this or because of
Right.
that or because of the
Right.
other thing. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be 99% of failures come from those people who have the habit of making excuses. I don't want to have those failures because I make excuses.
So I think the key word in that is the habit,
Yes.
right? We will all, if we're honest, and we should be honest, we all make excuses from time to time, right? But that excuse should be a temporary moment in time. And then what we should do is look at it and take responsibility and accountability. Okay, that happened. Was it in my control? Was it not in my control? If it was in my control, what did I do? What could I have done differently? If it wasn't in my control, well, how can I get it under my control, right? To move forward. And so so I don't want people to be under the misconception that we're saying never make an excuse for anything, because you will. It's natural, right?
Of course.
What we're saying is don't live in that space,
Right.
right? Don't make that a habit. I was saying before we came on air that I'm taking on a new team as part of my responsibilities. And I had a conversation with one of them the other day, even just in preparation. And I said the two things that annoy me and get under my skin is when people say, when we're looking to change and make change, and let's face it, change is the one constant in our lives, right? So we have to embrace change and look for change, really. So one thing that people say is like, well, we've always done it this way, so that's how we're doing it, right?
Yeah,
That's an excuse,
it
right?
is. It is.
Not taking responsibility or accountability, it's just hiding. The second is, well, we tried it before and it didn't work, right? Okay, yeah, that's an excuse. So what didn't work,
Yeah.
right? What can we do
What is
differently?
the reasoning behind what is the reason behind it
Correct.
not working?
Yeah. And it's that sort of going those 5 or 7 layers deep, right? That we talk about all the time. We talk about it when we're saying like identifying your why and your purpose, right? Or when we're talking about the values exercise. Don't just look at the symptoms on the surface, dig deep and see what's actually causing it. And then again, you may sit on it an excuse for a minute, but then look at it and say, what can I do to make a difference?
Yeah.
Right. And that's how you move forward.
And I think again, I mean, we look at the habit of excuses, we could look at it related to bars, right? Behaviors and actions that we need to change.
Right.
We need to change the behaviors and actions of making excuses for our failures. And I think you hit a key point there, like evaluate the failure and then move forward. Don't live in that space, because I think that's where people get trapped and frozen sort of in time. And then they never reach their fullest potential. They never discover that purpose they're reaching for. And I think then that's going to lead to to those things that people talk about when they get older in life and look back and have all of these regrets.
Yeah. Exactly.
You and I think we're trying to live life full out.
Hmm.
We're trying not to make excuses. Is everything going as we had planned or hoped? No. But the one thing that we're doing, going back to last week's, is the persistence thing. We
Hmm.
keep pushing forward no matter what the results are.
Right.
Again, evaluating the way, testing and trying new things, and finding out what sticks and what isn't working.
Right.
And as much as we say that things may not be working in one area, I mean, I have some great opportunities coming up where I've just done some amazing workshops with some people. You're doing incredible workshops with
Mhm.
Disney right now. I had somebody reach back out to me that 6 months ago had no budget for any training and now wants to do coaching training for 35 of their managers.
Excellent. Yeah.
Right. So we're just working through the details of that right now. So
Mhm.
the
It is,
the opportunities are there.
yeah. Yeah.
We just need to have our eyes open looking for those
Right.
opportunities, because I think that's some of the excuses put the blinders on and we miss the opportunities.
Correct. And I think again, you're right with tying it back to bars, and we should, and that's that's what we created, because and it's not, again, it's not earth-breakingly unique, right? It's really breaking it down into simple things. And I think
Right.
with this topic, if where the majority of people live in the realm of results and success, right? They're looking at that and they're measuring their performance based on that. And then what they're doing is they make excuses why they're not achieving those results and the success that they desire. But what they should be doing is okay, you make the excuse, but then let's go back and say, what are those behaviors and actions, right, that I need to do, or we need to do every single day in order to drive the results and success that we're getting. And
Right.
don't look at it and say, okay, we've done it, we've got these behaviors and actions, now we've got the results and success, and just sit on that and say, okay, we've made it. No, you got to keep looking back, because you want to keep up leveling your results and success, right?
Exactly.
It's that culture of continual improvement. And it's easy to slip into a comfort zone, right? To slip into that and say, we're there, we've made it, we don't need to push ourselves anymore, right? We can
Yep.
relax a little bit now. It's that again, you're just going to end up going backwards. And so I think the key you said, like with what we're saying, and you start to see results start dripping in and different things, people coming back and asking for programs. The message of bars is right. Right? You can't
Mhm.
argue it. The
Nope.
behaviors and actions that you do every single day will directly impact the results and success that you get. Right? So the message is right.
100%.
How people are decoding that message is where the tricky thing is, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes
You're
it's
right.
not the right time for people, right? Like you
Yeah.
say, for whatever reason, budgets or um, maybe they don't see it. Maybe they think they can
The
do
value.
things
Yeah.
themselves, the value in it, and then, but eventually it will come round, right? And that's where that
Absolutely.
persistence um, comes in, right? And delivering that message week after week after week, and putting the context behind it as to why this is so important. And that's just talking for bars. Whatever you are doing, whether it's your own personal growth, whether it's raising your family, whether it's leading a team, whether it's running your own business, whatever, right? You can tie it back to that. And you mentioned earlier about leadership, and I thought about it at the time, and I say some people will say, "Hey, I'm not a leader," and everybody is a leader, right?
Yeah.
Because John Maxwell says leadership is influence, simple as that. And every single one of us influences other people, right? Because
Either for
people,
good or for bad.
exactly, either intentionally,
I don't think there's a neutral position on influence.
no,
It's either a positive influence or a negative influence.
correct. It's
Yeah.
and it's intentional or it's unintentional, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Design or default, all of those things that we talk about, right?
Mhm.
And people will watch what you do, they'll listen to what you say, and then they will emulate that, right? And if
Don't
they're
believe it,
emulating that,
just look at little kids and watching their parents. They're gonna
correct,
emulate
yeah,
what their parents do.
right. So those,
I was sitting in an airport lounge once just on emulating, and this completely vulgar gentleman who was making fun of everybody that walked by, poking fun at them by the way they looked or their mannerisms or anything
yeah,
like that, and the kids were joining right in on it. He was just raising another, like, it's amazing. Or you look at some other families where the parents will say, "No, hey, don't do that, don't do this." The
right,
kids fall in line and
right,
listen.
yeah,
There was influence.
yeah. So if you are influencing somebody else, which we all are, we've just said that, right? That means they will follow you. They'll either follow you physically or they'll follow you by emulating what you do. In other words, they are following what you do rather than what you say necessarily.
Right.
Um, and therefore, if somebody is following you, you are a leader, right?
There you go.
So everybody is a leader, right? And we should all be conscious of what we're doing and the impact we're having on others, the intentional or unintentional influence that we're having on others. And we don't use that as an excuse. We have to show them how we can make ourselves better, how we can make everything better. We need
Right.
to ask questions, right, instead of making excuses,
Yeah.
and break away from that natural instinct, right, to say, wasn't me, right?
Exactly.
Wasn't me.
So let me read this one quote, and then I want 60 seconds from your thoughts on this. It's from Psychology Today, and then I just want to close with one comment from John here. But Psychology says one of the primary factors is the fear of failure and rejection is why people make
Yep.
excuses. And they say that excuses serve as a protective mechanism to maintain self-esteem and avoid feelings of shame or inadequacy.
Yeah, fear of failure in my opinion, is the number one challenge, right? Because when we're children, it doesn't matter, right? We'll try anything. Nothing knocks us down. We just get back up and we pick ourselves up and we get on with it, right? Um, excuse me. As we get into our maybe like early teens, that's when people start to say, "Hey, don't do that, right? Don't push yourself, because if you do that and you fail, people are going to look at you bad,
Yeah,
right? Or
they're gonna laugh at
you
you.
might,
They're
and
gonna
so
tease
we
you.
we we instill that fear of failure into kids. It's not a natural fear,
That's right.
right? It doesn't exist when we're born. It's a human nature that is instilled into us. And I gosh, back in 2018 ish, somewhere like that, I had a radio show If you remember, I had a radio show
That's right.
online for
Yeah,
6
I
to 12
remember.
months.
Yeah.
And my catch line on that was don't live in fear of failure, live in fear of regret.
That's good.
And I think
Yeah.
that sums it up, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned regret earlier, and there's far too many people that get to the end of their life and go, what if, or if only? That's regret, right? Whereas why didn't they do it at the time? It was fear of failure and what
Right.
other people thought about them, right?
Yeah, I agree. That's good. So John just says this just to wrap things up. So no matter how many opportunities you've missed or mistakes you've made, don't ever make excuses. Bite the bullet, take complete responsibility for yourself, and keep trying. Keep
Yep.
trying, folks.
Yeah.
Get out of the habit of making those excuses. Don't be one of the 99%. Be one of the 1%.
Yeah.
Because the 1% are going to change the world. And I'm not talking wealthiest. I'm talking about those people that are going to go out there, make a difference, keep going no matter what's coming against them, and persist until they succeed, right? There's a whole chapter in Think and Grow Rich on persistence. We've read that dozens of times, probably, Chris, over the years since 2017, dozens of times.
Yeah.
Because one of the things we had to do in the Think and Grow Rich study guide that we did, we had to read that chapter on persistence for 14 days in a row, every day, 14 days in a row. And if you missed a day, you had to start over again at day one. So I can't tell you how many times I've read that chapter on persistence, but I tell you also with that, it's helped me to eliminate excuses and to keep pushing forward, even when things don't materialize like I think they should.
Yeah. And I think what it's done as well, Al, is that awareness. It helps us to be aware and identify when we are making excuses, right? And then catch that and then change it. And, I want to like just end with a thought that was just going through my mind. People will say, what if I try that and it doesn't work? All right.
Great.
And I would say, well, what if you try it and it does work?
It does work. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But our natural instinct is to think, well, it might not work. Correct. But it might. Right?
Exactly.
And guess what? If you don't try, you'll never find out.
Know. Never going to know.
Never
going to know.
So really, my encouragement to everybody is to think about, when are you making excuses? What are you making excuses about? And how can you reverse that and say, okay, that happened. What can I do about it to make it better? Right. And then go out and do it.
It's really good. Amazing, folks. I just want to leave you with one more quote. Napoleon Hill said, effort only fully releases its reward after a person refuses to quit. Go out there and have an amazing week. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raise Your Bars podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with your family, friends, and coworkers. We would sincerely appreciate it.